Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have South Lake's coach Mike Desmond, whose Seahawks are in a state final against neighboring Woodson next Saturday night at BCU Siegel Center. Coach, congratulations and thanks for doing this.
Thank you. It's huge. It's huge um, to be in this opportunity, man. It's a little bit unbelievable.
I thought you were going to say it's huge to be able to talk to me. I thought that's weird.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. Oh, you're talking about the game. Okay, yeah. It is a chance just to give people a little bit of the background. South Lakes won the state championship last year. They were in the state, I believe, at least the quarterfinals of two previous years. So this is a chance to go back to back. Which is a team they're very familiar with. They did beat them the first game, but that was the first game of the season. I know coach is not taking that for granted. And South Lakes had an impressive but narrow win over a tough and young Lansdowne team in a great environment. First of all, Coach, let's talk about being sick. Are you mad at Coach Jim Smith for the things he said about you when you were sick?
No, not at all. I text Jim and I was like, thanks for the mental kick in the butt. And he reminded me he is still my coach. Shout out to Jim. Great season. It's unfortunate that they didn't get one more to get down to VCU. He's just done an incredible job at Meridian. And, I don't know how many people knew what a Meridian was before Jim got there, Jim can say whatever he wants to me or about me, and I won't flinch.
Yeah. I got a lot of nastygrams about that because I posted the clip and it didn't show the whole thing that Jim said. And he was obviously kidding and all that stuff. I like people need to lighten up. He was just kidding. Now,
I mean, it's another thing, Julian, where people don't know. Coaches, we have this banter and we say things, and we're friends. You guys got to relax about some of those things.
exactly. Uh, Talk about being friends. Um, is it hard to play against a close friend like Doug Craig? Are you going to tease him about how he dresses the
Yes,
whole week? What is it like playing against a close friend? And would you rather play against somebody that you hate?
I don't hate anybody.
Okay.
I really don't hate anybody. It's not hard to play against a friend. And it's like all those coaches, we have the same issues, the same struggles. And Doug, like so many other coaches, have been great to me before I got the job. Excuse me, my dog is trying to attack me. Um, like he's always been someone to speak to me when I was an assistant. I've coached some of his kids for AAU back in the day when I did AAU. So no, it's not hard, but of course, Doug is already sending me things about growing hair, and I've already recommended every barber in the Woodson area to him. So the banter has begun, but no, I don't have any ill will towards Doug or Woodson.
Sounds like you love everybody. Do you love the Westfield parents and supporters as well?
They're my biggest fans. How could I not love them? They're my biggest fans.
Uh, uh, yeah. Okay. So, talking about being sick, you had pneumonia and flu. This is a tough flu season, late flu season too. It's coming late. Um, did you learn anything from being sick? Like, for example, in the Hayfield game, Hayfield is a tough opponent. They beat you relatively soundly early in the season, and they beat you in the last 2 years to throw you out of the tournament. But you had to sit because you were feeling terrible. Did you learn anything that players will still play and the shots will still go in even if you sit?
I mean, I think we learned that earlier this year, when I was gone for the whole week with all those things combined.
Yeah.
And Damon, coached 3 games, 3 big games against Langley, Patron, and Mount. I'm forgetting who we played in one of the showcase games. Um, you know, I think if that hadn't happened, maybe Tuesday would have been more difficult. But the kids, we don't we don't have a practice or a game where it's just me speaking or me with ideas or me implementing things. My staff does a great job. And, I was on Hatfield yesterday and I said there was a couple times in the game Tuesday where, I'm coaching through Damon, and not just a coaching support. There were two or three times where I stood up or I was yelling that everything went blank, man, and I had to grab Damon so I didn't fall down and die on the floor and cause a big delay to the game. So you just learn that I guess, again, I trust my guys. I trust my players and my staff. So no, I mean, it wasn't a shock that we were able to still communicate through Damon because I've been communicating through all my coaches all year.
Yeah. Coach, make sure if you fall, you stay in the coach's box. So if you
Oh
stay,
yeah.
yeah. Does it make you wonder? Kevin Harris is probably the only coach in the area that sits for a long period of time. He stands up, but he does try to sit. But I don't know of any other coach that sits. There's one of the best coaches in the history of Virginia basketball is a guy named Bill Littlepage from Hopewell. I think he won like 800 games, and he always sat, never stood up. Had his hand in his he had his head in his hand, just kind of sat there, and no one else that I've seen has been able to do it. Do you think you could sit for a long period of time and still coach?
No, no. I don't know how Kevin stays so calm. Sometimes, I mean, again, I remember being a young coach back to gym, stand up. And usually if I'm sitting down, it's because I'm having a conversation with a coach going over, X, Y, and Z. But, stand up, clap, cheer, and my kids act like they don't hear me anyways when I'm yelling. So I have to stand up to yell and kind of project even louder.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think, when you stand up, you feel like you are in the game with your kids, and your kids can see that. I've coached before. I was a summer league coach. I'm not your level coach, Desmond, but I felt like I had to stand. So they knew I was in the game. I don't like when coaches sit down when they're getting beat and stand when they're winning. I feel like that's kind of a front runner mentality. You're going to stand, you got to stand. Um, so look, being sick, did you prepare the same during the week for Lansdowne? I mean, I had tried to get you on the podcast during the week. You weren't feeling well, and so obviously you probably weren't able to be in the preparation the same. Were you able to prepare for Lansdowne in the same way, even though you were sick?
Sort of, sort of. I told you last week I was up for 2 hours, down for 2 hours, up for 2 hours, down for 2 hours. Um, so Damon, he and I would communicate via phone call or text, and you know, he's making the clips up for huddle, and I'm making comments back to him. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about that. Um, you know, I used to be controlling and obsessive where I had to do the scout, I had to break everything down, I had to do this. Um, Found out last year Damon loves doing it, and that's taking several hours off my plate. So Damon's been the one most of the time. I'd say 90% of the time to do the clips on huddle, to kind of break down the film with the kids. So that routine didn't change. The only routine changed as in practice, we break things into sections, which coach is going to do what. Damon just had to do all the sections.
Mm, yeah. Are you afraid if you lose a few games next year that people will start calling for Damon to get the head job?
They already have. And when it's time, I hope our administration makes the right choice. And that man is the right choice. He's young enough to do the job for 25 years. So, yeah, to me, it's a no brainer.
Yeah.
He's proven he can do it. Yeah. So, it's a compliment, I think, to have an assistant coach that is that good. And, maybe I've helped him, maybe I've haven't, but no, I have no problem people asking for Damon to take over.
Yeah.
Tyler Andre sent me a text after we lost to Westfield the first time. Time to hang it up, old man. Get out of the way. Let Damon take over. So,
Yeah. That's a good pick for me. So you're playing at a home court in Reston. Do you think that's fair to
nope,
have games? Yeah.
nope. And I said this yesterday. Those coaches who had home games and won, don't sit there and lie and act like it wasn't an advantage. It was. And this time of year, if you're not playing at a home gym, you have to go on the road. You can't use it as an excuse, but it is a reason. It's a reason From anything from just a locker room setup, a report time, a travel, a familiarity. The Whites kids have never seen South Lakes before, never seen it before. And we had a lot of spring sports things going on when the game started because it was a little earlier. By halftime, that place was wall to wall again. And, you know, at a neutral site with all Final Four teams, what a great environment, wall to wall that had been from start to finish. There's got to be a college somewhere in the middle that we could have all went to and had that environment, that feel. Um, I only got there once, but I remember playing at George Mason. That was pretty damn cool for a Final Four.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw all the refs there, like the reunion. We used to have that at regionals, but there's no real regional anymore because everyone's always there's so many different sites. There's girls, there's boys, there's Northern, there's Occoquan. So that I did see it had the feel of the regional game, that game, just because it was the only one of the only games in town. So um, that was great. I think one thing it's doing is it's making the tournament so chalky. You're asking long shot teams, you're asking the teams that are underdogs to not only beat better teams, but beat them on the road. So if you look up and down the classification, girls and boys, it's all favorites. So they've really taken a lot of the thrill out of the tournament. I mean, look, the best team should be rewarded for the regular season play, but it's a tournament game. So they got to do something about that. I love South Lakes. I feel almost home there. I go to probably more games there than any other gym, but to have a two freshman sophomore team come out and play at South Lakes, and play very well. Yeah, I just think the VHSL needs to look deeply at what we're trying to accomplish with these posting there. But look, that's not your doing. Let's go back to the Hayfield game real quick because I didn't get a chance to talk to you about that game. Um, that was a very that was a game with two teams playing great defense. Everything was contested. They had a hard time scoring on you. They did a great job trying to contain what you're trying to do. What did you think about the Hayfield game between Coffee and Fitz?
Um, you know, Carlos is Carlos, and his teams always perform. His teams always have that toughness to them, mentally and physically. Defensively, they're always going to be there. Um, kind of like what Carlos said, on the recap. It was a little surprising for us that we did such a good job consistently keeping them from getting downhill as much as they did the first time we played them and what they've done all year. I thought probably the X factor in that game was how good Merrick played. He was able to get to spots and make plays. And that hasn't been something consistently we've seen from him. So we just had enough plays in that game, where we were able to get a three possession lead, and they come back, and we saw it Friday night as well. Like, I have a hard time getting this group compared to other groups where we're trying to have a put away possession. It doesn't mean pass that ball for 30 minutes and not try to score. It's move the ball, move yourselves, and try to attack in space. And while those things weren't going efficiently or effectively for us, we were able to get stops off their stops.
Yeah, I thought getting back to Merrick for a second, he plays loose, and sometimes playing loose he makes mistakes. But it's like he'll make big plays because he's relaxed. He plays his game no matter what. It seems to like down the stretch sometimes he'll make the big plays because he's kind of I don't want to say carefree, but he just lets it all out there, and he's such a great athlete and has such skill that oftentimes really good things happen.
And oftentimes, really bad things happen. Yeah, I mean, Merrick knows I give the kid nothing but tough love, and he takes on those challenges. Um, Sometimes he is playing, like you said, so loose that there's four guys doing one thing and he's doing another thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that works out, sometimes that doesn't. Friday night he had just, I forget, just a boneheaded turnover late in the game, and he comes up with a steal and an and one in the same possession. He turns it over, gets it back, scores. You live on the ups and downs of Merrick Realstone sometimes.
I think the upside is tremendous. When you have Jordan and Merrick on your team, you got two very long players. Both of them have great vision. Obviously, Jordan is the more experience and makes very few turnovers. Merrick's, he's still getting into the South Lake system, but he makes so many great plays off his vision. It's the sky is the limit, obviously for both, but it's going to be exciting to see how far Merrick can come. When you think about Lansdowne, I felt they were very similar to Hayfield in that they guard very well. They're long, they're quick. They're not tall like Hayfield. I think they're probably 6'4", 6'5", 6'3", 6'1", and they're young. But they're very similar to Hayfield. How would you? What would be your scouting report on Lansdowne?
What a surprise. Dwight Robinson has a great team, right? Shocker. Um, they're, that game, you knew they were tested. You knew they had been through some really tough games and had some really good wins and had some very good losses. Um, they played Oscar Smith close. They played John Marshall close for a while. Um, and they're kids, like they're kids. Like, I knew they were young, but when you see them, children, and to be in that stage and have the season that those guys had at that age, if they stay humble and stay together, you could see them next year down at VCU. You could see them matched up with other good young teams from this area also um, for the next couple of years. The White does just a great job. He's a legend in the 757, making teams great. And that's a young, dangerous team where we weren't sure. Like, was the moment going to be too big, or were they just not going to care because they're so young?
Yeah. Only thing I worry about with Lansdowne, it seems every year I hear the great player transferred from Lansdowne. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I think his son, we can rest assured, will be there next year. He was a freshman. He was incredible. I can't think of his name. What was his first name, Coach?
Damien,
Yeah, he's a great player, and he was the leading scorer, 17 a game as a freshman. Was scoreless until very late. He had two 3-pointers that almost got them not back in the game and gave them a little bit of hope. But you guys did a great job on him.
yeah, I thought, our backcourt, Alex Saunders and CJ Kemmer, um, those are two guys who are other sports first guys. And they've been around, they're 4-year guys in our program, but, Alex done a great job all year moving from a wing to a point guard, if you would, taking on the challenge of guarding teams better guards. Same thing with CJ. CJ, like, I think for CJ sometimes, he had some great clutch moments throughout the state tournament for baseball last year. So, well, maybe he hasn't had that opportunity until this year on the basketball floor. He's been in big moments, and they're both tough kids. They're both kids that you can coach extremely hard, say things in the moment that, you know, if you weren't a Mike Desmond player, some of the things I say, you would take them personal. These two kids have learned throughout their career not to take it personal, to take it as a challenge. And I thought those two guys have exceeded expectations of people all year. They've stepped up and made plays all year. And Lansdowne, just like Hayfield, multiple guards that you have to be able to switch and defend. And I thought they did a great job.
Yeah. Well, also your young point guard Ramos. What's his first name, Coach? Number two,
Oh, Makai,
Makai Ramos. Met his dad. Very nice guy. Shout out to
Justin's
him.
great. Justin played for Bentley.
Oh, he did. Okay, we won't hold that against him. But I thought there was a play against the Hayfield where the Hayfield player, I think it was McFarland, had the lane, and Ramos almost like bodied him out of the lane somehow. I'm like, this kid is tiny. He's very strong. He's a strong defender for a guy his size.
Kai, consistency has been the problem all year, and he knows it, and we've talked about it. And it hasn't just been consistency on the offensive end, it's been consistency on the defensive end. I think a lot of the season, He kind of saved fouls where he was like, "Oh, if I get a foul, I'm going to come out." Like, bro, you're coming out anyways, man. And it was getting him not to reach, because he's not the biggest kid. He can't get out of position and let another player get the angle where they can take two dribbles and bump him off the line. So trying to get Makai just to use his tiny frame body instead of his little tiny arms to reach all the time. He can be a pest on the ball. It's being in the right place off the ball or off the drive before it happens so that he doesn't get his size used against him. But he's been playing good for about 3 weeks now, and he really stepped up in the regional finals when Kimmer couldn't come back in with the shoulder injury in the second half.
Yeah. Well, also your Toshi had a tremendous week. Yeah, two big games for you. Moves without the ball, makes the right pass, finishes, defends, loose balls, offensive rebounds. Actually, a great 3 games in a row. He may have had more than that. I just didn't see them, but he is quietly becoming like an all-region type performer.
Toshi just does the jobs quietly. And sometimes, we get on Toshi about, just catch and score, man. You don't have to dribble. You don't have to do the old man 50 pump fakes. And he gets it. Toshi all year's been a kid during timeouts or things like that, or even halftime when they're in there and you're trying to walk in the locker room. Toshi's coaching. Toshi's reminding guys. Toshi's a 3-year varsity guy. Toshi has seen the ups and Toshi has seen the downs. So his experience, not just on the floor, but from a mental aspect of what we're trying to do, he knows it. And it's been great to have him.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Alex Saunders, you did mention him earlier along with CJ on defense, but Alec has he's showing some 3-point range as well.
He can shoot him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't get out of sorts when I see him shoot a nice driving kick. And, we have to remind Alec that you're a strong guard. So when you drive, you don't have to do finesse. Use that big football frame and power into people and go up strong. He's pretty good too, splitting a defender and hitting a nice 8 to 10 foot pull up at times too.
Yeah. You yell at him a lot, and he's a big guy. Are you ever afraid he's going to retaliate and knock? He's a football player, knock you over?
I hope not, especially in my fragile stage right now. Not me. Again, he's been around.
Yeah.
He's a 3rd-year varsity player just like Toshi,
Yeah.
and he has learned to hear the message, not the delivery. And he's another kid that we lay challenges out constantly, and he accepts them.
Yeah. Well, Alec, awesome job this year being a factor, and good luck this week. Well, let's talk about Jordan a little bit. So Jordan didn't have the best shooting week of his life, but he got 2 wins, which all he cares about. Great floor game. Chris Jolly from Nova Hoops pointed out that his rim protection against Lansdowne was incredible. And it's funny, it was, but I'd forgotten about that. Sometimes we kind of take the things that Jordan does well for granted because he's such a great player. Talk about Jordan's defensive game on Friday.
I mean, he is a high-level defender. He really is, and people never talk about it because I don't know that he's long. He's supposed to block shots. He does a great job on the ball. He does a great job off the ball in the passing lanes. He can guard at the high school, public school level 1 through 5. I have no problem if he's out there guarding a quick little water bug or a big kid inside. And being able to block the shots or change the shots, that's not just athleticism. Again, let's go back to his IQ, which I always talk about. He sees the play happening. He knows when to move, and he's very, very aware of what angle a guy is going to try to shoot the ball so he can make those plays on the ball and adjust in the air to those players' shots.
Yeah. Is Jordan having fun? Is it still fun for him? Do you think the pressure a lot on him, or do you think he's out there a cool customer as always?
No, I think he's just having fun. He just loves basketball. He dives on the floor in games for balls that he probably shouldn't even try because they're already out of bounds.
I wish he wouldn't do that.
So do I, but that's Jordan. He loves basketball, and that's part of basketball to him. I think he's having fun. He's not going to be he's stoic. He's locked in when the games are going on, but no, I think he's having a good time staying at South Lakes. playing with Toshi, one of his buddies, playing with Saunders and a guy named Tavian that we don't play a lot. Just being around his friends, he's having fun.
He's having fun, and his game has developed beautifully. He's proven you can be an elite player and play in the public schools. I would say I quote John Wooden, one of the greatest coaches of all time, Jordan. And if you have to dive, then you're out of position. So please don't dive. We don't want you to get hurt this week. So well, look, let's Lansdowne. Did we cover them? I was really, yeah, I do want to talk about their big guy. They had two players I was really impressed with. Actually, the whole team was impressive. But they had the guy, I think is Javion Cleveland, I believe his name. He went man to man on Jordan. And I also thought the Cam Prosper did a great job from Hayfield. But this guy plays about as good a defense man to man as you can play at on the high school level. This guy, Javion Cleveland.
Young, athletic, 7'5", 7 tough, right? I mean, Sherman said it on your wrap up with him and Lowe's. They weren't going to come in and be like, "Oh, Jordan Scott," no, they don't do that down there. So I mean, it was a state semifinal game. They did a great job being physical, picking their spots. And I think Jordan didn't score a lot of points. And, what a great job. Okay, that is fair. I also think Jordan accounted for a lot of points.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're going to put so much attention on just Jordan, maybe he doesn't get the assist, but he gets the pass that leads to the assist. And Doug said it yesterday on your show about how, very respectful to Jordan. He does more than just score. It's great when he scores, but he dominates. He could have 10, 12 points.
Mm-hmm.
And he still dominated the game because you have put in 2.5 guys on him, even if you don't know you're doing it. Yeah. So Xavier did a great job individually on Jordan, and it probably allowed other guys to get going.
Yeah. He's an old school defender. We used to defend with our hips, and we used to push at low because the referees were looking high. And I haven't seen a kid do that as well as him since what we used to play. That was a tactic that we used in my day, and you don't see it as much these days. So I was really impressed with that kid. Future's bright. I really hope it lands down. That team can stay together, and yep. I'm sure they'll make another run. Truth be told, there's only 2 Class 6 teams down there, so every year they have to make a run. But that is a great team, and they'd be a worthy state final participant. Well, let's go to the Woodson Oscar Smith game. Now, I actually watched the game yesterday afternoon after talking to Coach Craig. I wish I would have watched it before. I just didn't have time. And man, what a great game! So Oscar Smith was the most impressive team I saw all year. I only saw them play twice, and they beat Wakefield by 40, and they beat Potomac by 40. And they just did it in the most intimidating and most impressive way. They're long, they're fast, they're mean, they shoot, they pass, they're well coached, everything. So I thought they probably were the favorites and to win the state. I did think they'd have a hard time matching up against South Lakes, but I thought they were the favorites to win the state. And when I heard Woodson beat them, I just thought, well, they must have just had a bad night or whatever. Well, when I watched the replay, they did miss a lot of easy shots, but Woodson just took it to them. And they were better this night. This game wasn't a fluke. Shout out to the 757 officials. They called a really good home game.
Yep.
You're always worried about how that's going to go with a home association. And I think the guys did a good job in your game as well, Mike. But I thought you guys got some good officiating down there, fair. But they kicked Oscar Smith's butt. What a performance!
So I watched the game 3 times. My dad, shout out Mike Desmond Sr. down in Florida. He texted me yesterday after he had texted me Friday night because he watched them play too. He's like, "Man, you got your hands full." And I'm like, "No, Woodson, even when the game was close or got chaotic, Woodson, it just felt like Woodson was in control." And Doug has such a seasoned and veteran group, and you can tell that his players have been through those ups and downs, and to be able to go down to Oscar Smith, like you said, and you never know how the call is going to go, and it was a great, clean game for the most part, and you can't ever have a perfectly officiated game, but I thought it was a really clean game, calling it the same on both ends. Um, how tough are Doug's kids mentally, right? Like you go into that environment and they thrived in that environment, and that is tremendous. We'll talk about Woodson and how skilled they are, but mentally, what a group, right? What a group of kids. And we talked on the show before the season. We said that they are a favorite. They are a team that could easily go down to VCU and win. And they had played probably the best consistent basketball all year up here.
Yeah.
And even their two losses late, Theo was hurt. So, to take that team and consistently do what they were supposed to do, and that's hard, speaking from experience, to get where people say you're supposed to go is extremely hard. And Doug's done a great job handling those expectations.
Well, speaking of expectations, didn't Coach Craig say though that his team would struggle to even qualify for the district tournament in the Patriot this year?
Yeah, I mean, probably, I'm not going to look, there's no gas this week, and Doug can spin what I said a month ago or whatever it was to his kids. I never said Woodson was bad or anyone in the Patriot was bad. That's never what I said.
Yeah.
Again, go back, Woodson players, and watch how much I praised your team 3 months ago.
Yeah.
No, it's Doug knows.
Yeah.
Doug knows how good they are. Doug told us all in the fall how good they were because they were playing with experience. They were playing with hunger, and they have a team goal, and they're one game away from reaching that team goal.
Yeah, their team. It was the first time I've seen them play the whole game since you guys played them. I was there early. Um, their guards are as you said physical. Theo Burke. What's the kid, the player of the year, the stocky kid with the big shoulders, and then
Noah,
Noah Limbago, I believe.
yes,
Very physical, good finisher, can shoot, and then they have the kid Ryan Corallo can shoot, kind of the unsung hero on the team.
that kid's look him in I mean, look, Kalen's a superstar. Noah's the player of the year. Theo's a superstar, but Taylor and Carrillo, those two dudes, those are all first team type kind of guys that didn't get those kind of notoriety because of however we vote. But you got to watch out for the lefty because he's going to quietly hurt you if you don't put as much attention on him as you do the other guards and the other forwards. He's a great shooter, great looking stroke. He can put the ball in the deck and shoot off the bounce. It's a complete team. That starting five is as complete as you're going to see a team have. And then you bring the Morgan kid off the bench, and then the little shooter, Daniel, I can't pronounce his last name. I know he didn't play a lot in the Oscar Smith game, but that kid's a wide open 3-point maker.
Yeah.
It's a complete team, Julian. It is a complete team. It reminds me of my group last year in a different kind of way, but it's a complete team. They got 6 dudes playing in college, maybe. Like none of us can say that.
Yeah, and Kalen, did I get his name right? Kalen. He's playing under control. It used to be he was a kid in the candy shop, a bull in the china shop, whatever the saying is. But he could do so much. He didn't really quite know when to do things. I felt like against Oscar Smith, he could take over a game at just the moments that they needed, and I was surprised at that, and I think Oscar Smith was too.
You see a young superstar like that have the game slow down. And I don't know, probably, obviously Doug would know, but at some point this year, probably mid-season, less became more, and he figured out how to be just as dynamite and fantastic in the flow of what Woodson does.
Yeah.
And when your superstar can do that, you're really good.
Yeah. He's a really good team. Well, let's talk a little bit about the kids. I mean, the coaches were blown up. Will, what's the last name again, Coach? I should have been prepared. Will, the big kid, 6'5" kid.
Oh,
Will
Taylor.
Taylor. So the coaches are blowing up. Carlos and Sherman were blowing up how good this kid, especially Carlos. He did a great job for you, relieving pressure. Great job for Coach Craig, relieving pressure, but just defending. I thought he was really good in the post for Woodson.
Experience, right? I mean, he played against some 6'7" monsters last year, a whole bunch in practice too. So, and he's not just he can score inside. He's really good around the bucket. He can make the outside shot too. They do a lot of the little power call with the ball screen with him and Noah, and sometimes he rolls and Noah does a great job with a pocket pass or just throwing it over the top. And sometimes Taylor pops. So you have to be able to have two kids that can play that and switch that and make sure other guys are rotating to the Taylor kid because he can play inside and outside. And he can handle the ball enough that, again, if you're just playing straight man to man, he can bring it up. You can let your guards wrestle a little bit.
Well, the long kid they have off the bench, you mentioned, what's his name, Coach?
Morgan, last name I believe is
Yeah, he had
Morgan.
a nice game yesterday. He's a good finisher, long kid, 6'3", but he looks taller. This kid gives him a little bit of spark.
Yeah, that wingspan, and he's a guy where you can bring him off the bench, put him on the other team's best player, and rest like Noah, who's a great matchup because he's a big kid that can guard 1 through 5, and you don't have to say, all right, Noah, you're going to guard this kid for 32 minutes. The Morgan kid can come in and do that. The Morgan kid can give the Taylor kid a break and protect the rim and score inside. He's very versatile, and I want to say, and Doug will correct me. I want to say this is the kid that had this amazing fall in the South Lakes JV and freshman fall league 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. But there was this skinny kid out there just hooping on Woodson's freshman and JV team. I'm like, Doug, who is this kid? This is the same kid. Then yeah, Doug called it when this kid was a freshman. He's going to be special, Mike. So he's not wrong. What a great player to bring off the bench. He starts for me.
Yeah, he's a good player. Doug's loaded. It's ridiculous
Yep.
how loaded.
Yes, he is.
How loaded. Yeah, so that's it. What's in is going to be a tough matchup. I felt last year, Coach, that you losing to Patriot big on their home court worked in your favor in the state final because I felt Sherman was a little bit restrained by the success of the first game, so he probably didn't change that much. You guys came out and you were a completely different team. You ran different stuff. You were motivated. The loss, I think, was almost an advantage for you. How do you prevent your kids from falling into the same trap?
I mean, there's two things like I don't subscribe to, right? I don't subscribe to because you beat someone in the regular season, it matters one way or the other. And playing Woodson in the first game of the year, that's basically a really good scrimmage, right? It's the first game. And you have first game jitters, first game mistakes. I haven't even looked at that film. I won't even look at that film. There's no reason to look at that film. And then I also don't think, because I know people are going to say, oh, you have the advantage. You guys have been to VCU before. Oh, that shit didn't work out for Sherman last year, right? Like, and he was true. Like, it doesn't matter. Once you're there, you still have to make plays. And losing a game in December should never affect the team in March. It shouldn't. You shouldn't have extra motivation because of it, because that happened so long ago. And if you're still upset about a loss that happened in December, well, shame on you as a coach and players for not evolving and getting better if that's what you're thinking about. And shame on you as a coach and players if you're arrogant enough to think that a win in December matters in March, because it doesn't. A win in late February, if you're playing that team again in March, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. I agree. I think I think the kids are going to be so excited for that stage. I think once they get out there, they're going to be dialed in. Now, do you like the tempo? Do you like it's a little anticlimactic a little bit. You got to we got to rebuild to the end of the week. Do you like the tempo that we have and that you have 2 games this week and basically you have 8 days to get ready for next week?
I do, in the sense that we have the opportunity, just like last year, to Monday, let's work on Woodson does X and Woodson does Y. Tuesday, two new things. You're not trying to bog everything into one practice or 2 practices. Well, we can't simulate their length or their skill. It gives us a week to prepare on where they go and how they move, and to find ways to get new looks against that zone, to get new looks against their man-to-man, and they do a great job off the ball rotating and being in the right spots to play help defense. So not having to rush, having those practices where you can take an hour of intensity and focus on your opponent, but then take another hour of just shooting and polishing things up that you need to do to keep kind of a to keep a very basic practice so you're still doing the things you were doing skill related 2 3 months ago.
Yeah, and coach, is this going to be a day trip? Are you going to stay a night?
No, last year with the 1 o'clock game, it made sense to go down the night before. With a 6:30 game, that'd be stupid. We'd stay there. We'd go to a hotel, and everything's booked anyways down there because there's your son's sport has taken over Richmond for some big kick a ball on the ground tournament. Um,
Do you think it's a proper
so
sport?
well, I think it's a third world country sport. No, so going down there the night before, we'd have to check out at what 11, 12, and then we're standing around, walking around a mall for 6 hours. Watching a game on the pitch for 6 hours. It makes no sense to me to have all that dead time of standing around looking to do something instead of just driving down in the late morning, early afternoon, getting some food, going to the game. Like I don't want to be sitting in VCU for an hour before we get into our locker room. I don't want to do that.
How sad are you going to be that this is the last time you coach these seniors?
Um, it'll be tough. Every year is tough, and we have on this group of kids. I got a 4-year guy with me. I got a couple 3-year guys with me, and it will be tough. It will be very hard. But just like them, I'm going to turn the page, right? Saturday, win or lose, it's over. And an end of an era for South Lakes basketball is going to happen on Saturday, one way or the other. But you'll miss people. You'll miss people.
Yeah. Well, Kristen Realstone says America's returning to South Lakes next year, so the future is very bright. And I will let you know that I almost made Jim Smith cry with that question earlier this week, and he didn't want to cry. I'm like, this is good for ratings, coach. You
Yeah,
gotta
I
come.
saw it. Saw it. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost got him. I think I could have gotten him, but I didn't go for the kill.
I
But
thought I saw a tear.
yeah, what do you say
And
to him crying on social media like that? Do you have anything to say to him?
that's a real man. Not afraid to show it. Not afraid to show that he loves his kids.
Yep, yep, yep. Okay, you're too nice to coach. You should get. I gave you an opportunity to get right back to him. Let's talk a little bit about Riverside and your friend Steve Kerr. Now, did you get a chance to watch the Riverside game or talk to Steve Kerr this week?
I actually blocked Steve Kerr last week. He said some nonsense to me, and I told him I was like, "Bro, you have to get blocked for a while." So
You
Steve's in
really blocked
timeout.
him?
I did, yeah. Steve's in timeout right now till he fixes some things and starts speaking with some actual. No, I'm kidding. I did block him. I did block him though.
You
But
did.
I did. I talked to Mike a little bit, and it's too bad. And I haven't watched their game in full, and I want to because I know that it was a good game. And um, apparently, uh, Auburn, whatever they played, tried to do some slick stuff. Like, if you come to South Lakes, you don't have to bring a film crew. You don't have to bring basketballs. I'm going to greet you. I'm going to say, what do you need? You need, I'm going to open the doors. Apparently, they didn't get that. Apparently, there was some shady stuff where they gave them like gym basketballs to warm ups and just some stuff. And I don't know. I don't know that coach at Auburn, whatever. And I haven't watched the game, and I'm just going off what Mike told me. But as much crap as we've given them, they had a hell of a year. They had a historical year.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't feel bad about anything.
Wow, that's really sad to hear that, and that's another reason why you have to have these games on neutral courts. Can you imagine? I got a text from a supporter at the game, and she was just like, "You're not going to believe what's going on here." And she's never complained about anything, and I believe her. I feel bad because Woodside lost. They had a real chance at a state championship. I mean, I'm not. I'm sure Green Run is really good, but Woodside
Oh,
maybe.
Green Run's very good.
They're very good, but
Green Run's
Woodside,
very good. We saw them.
yeah, but Woodside is really a tough team in experience. But yeah, either team would have been tough. But it's a shame. You know, I still hear about that clip that I put out about the Rivers. It's probably one of the most viral clips I've ever put out, and it's just so interesting because me and you were kidding, and everyone else thought we were serious about. I mean, I think Riverside's a great team, but I was just kidding the coaches, and it's just crazy how they didn't know we were kidding.
Again, people who aren't in the know. And once we got those guys up to speed, they understood the joke. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, Riverside had a hell of a year. Like 20 something and two. You're one of the best teams in Virginia.
Yeah, they had a great team. I'm very lucky to, I live right down the street. I saw a lot of their games. I actually stopped going halfway through because they're beating everyone by 30 points. So I like to go to close games. And, when it's so easy. But I felt like I should have stayed because that was a really great, it was a fun team to watch. The boys share the ball. Coach did a great job with them this year. They, they lost a top player for a transfer and they ended up having a magical season. And credit to the kids and the coach for doing that. Well, look, coach, this has been
Addition by subtraction, right?
what's that?
Addition by subtraction.
It really was. It could have been something that was a really a bad sign for their season. But I really think their chemistry was so great this year that I'm not sure how much better they could have been. They probably could have used. They had a good guy off the bench named Seb. I forgot his last name. I haven't given him enough credit this year, but he's a good player. But they weren't the deepest team in the world. They probably could have used another player or two with some size on the bench. But besides that, their starting five I will put with any starting five that I've seen this year. I mean, just a
Great.
great starting five. Shout out to a guy named Joel Basu, made second team all district, one of the best players in the region, and he deserves more. I mean, I think he made second team all region or all district. Anyway, shout out to him. He's a great player. So, Coach Craig said that you've agreed to come on a joint podcast this week with him to talk about the game. Is that true, or is Coach talking out of school?
No, I mean, look again. I'll come on the show with Doug. We're not enemies. We'll joke each other. I'm bald. He is bald. He just doesn't realize he got that one piece of hair he wraps around the top of his head. No, we can go on the show and you'll have two guys who know each other's teams pretty well, and I don't think you'll get other than us joking each other. Um, there'll be no gas thrown out for either team to put on the bulletin board. Again, they're a complete team, and as he said, what, six guys playing in college? Probably that's a damn good team. That's a talented team.
Yeah. So funny about this gas thing because I can't, coaches are so sensitive and they look for anything to use with their kids to get the kids motivated, which is fine because you talk to the kids all the time. It's hard to find new pep talks or the new inspiring speech. But I am surprised at some of the things that I do. I'll hear about it from a random parent or a coach. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't know that was so offensive. But I get nasty grams and comments, and I'm just like, well, that's really interesting. So
Maybe
I just what's that?
maybe you're your realtor just like you're my realtor. Maybe you're moving to people's minds left and right also.
Exactly. They don't want me in their minds. I have a lot to say. They're not going to get any sleep. But anyway, Coach, look, I appreciate your time. You've done a great job this year. I think you're a very underrated coach, even though you're Washington Post Coach of the Year. I think Class 6 Coach of the Year as well. I think when you have talent, people assume you win because you have talent, but it's coach overachieving and coaching talent and is two different things, and also developing talent are different things. Another amazing job. Look, if you lose this game, will you get fired? I can't speak to that. I don't know. But I definitely would be cheering for your success and all the kids. Coach Craig's friend of mine as well. I want you guys to just have a great game and it's the festival of Northern Region basketball. You guys have done what you set out to do and go down there and enjoy it.
I mean, again, I appreciate you having us on and getting to this point with this group of kids is an accomplishment, not as, but close to winning it all last year with a group that we knew was good enough to win it all. You gotta be in the game to have a chance, and we're gonna be in that game Saturday, and um, we shall see.
I don't think people realize how far you've come. When you go watch the team play, your role players are great defenders. They're shooting well. They do everything, but they don't realize a lot of times it's hard to do that without varsity experience. You can't assume that the team evolved really well, and to me, they're playing on the same level as the team played last year. But I would have never taken that bet in November.
Hell no, no, y'all thought I was sandbagging? No, man. Like 10 games is what I thought, and Mike Rob. How about this? I don't know because I haven't talked to Mike Robinson. I got a text from someone Tuesday night after the Hayfield game that they said Mike Robinson said, "Man, South Lakes' other guys, their role players, have gotten so much better throughout the course of the season." And I think we do a good job teaching basketball.
Yeah.
I do. And, well, a lot of people think I just roll it out there, or a certain coach said, well, we'll see if you're a good coach without Jordan Scott. You just give Jordan the ball. Yeah, because I'm a good coach. You give Jordan the ball too all the time, dum dum. So, it's like we've done a good job as coaches, and the kids have done a better job as players taking what we've said, advancing advancing a role and just being really good at those things, and then letting the game just happen. We don't have six college players. So you have to really tip your hat to the guys who don't get the limelight, the guys who aren't going to be playing basketball after Saturday ever again. They've done an excellent job for South Lakes. They've done an excellent job for me. They've made me look like a good coach because they've listened. And when they listen, we have shots to win games.
And the beautiful thing is when you have an historic player like Jordan Scott and you have an incredibly talented player like Merrick Realstone, sometimes role players are best because you want your offense, you want things to go through your best players. Last year, you had more great players, and
Yes,
which is great. It makes you more explosive. But sometimes, sometimes maybe things weren't necessarily done exactly the way you want to be done because you have a lot of folks that need the space to create their own offense. So, which one's better? It's impossible to tell. They want a state title. This team has work to do, but I think they're both great teams, and I think they're just very different. So
very different. Yes, I agree. Very
yeah,
different.
and Jordan's a better player this year. He's come on too. He's improved every year. So um,
So, yep, I agree.
yeah. So all right, look, coach, this has been great. We'll get on later on this week, and you and Doug can have it out.
Perfect. I love it. I love it.
All right. Thanks, coach. Have a great Sunday.
You too.